Welcome, studio audience. We are watching Passion for Health, and we have a great show today. We're going to be talking about diet and healthy heart. So today we have our expert dietitian with us today. She's going to tell us a little bit about some fats and some other interesting things.
Yes, thank you. It's good to be here. My name is Allison Stowell. I am a registered dietitian, local dietitian, working in supermarkets. I do a lot of writing about food, and I'm happy to be here today.
Fantastic. So let's talk about the first thing. Let's talk about some fats and break them down for us, because I'm always a little confused about the different types and kinds of fats that are available. I never know what to choose.
Right. So we're talking today about heart health, as we mentioned. So certainly the fats that we consume are the first thing that we want to discuss. We've got some with us today. We've got some olive oil, coconut oil, and then some products that are using some heart healthy oils in them. When broadly speaking, the information and the message around fats hasn't changed that much, right? We would like to avoid our saturated fat as much as possible. Our saturated fat is going to be found primarily in animals, our dairy products, our whole milk dairy products, I should say, not as much in a non-fat dairy product. And so we want to limit that as much as possible. There's a strong connection between saturated fat and heart disease, and elevated cholesterol, and an elevated bad cholesterol. And the other thing that we want to avoid altogether is trans fats. And avoiding trans fats has become easier in the past few years. Most products are working hard to remove that from their product.
So a trans fat is exactly what is it?
So a trans fat, actually the whole history behind trans fats is interesting, because trans fats are developed in manufacturing. You can't make a trans fat in your kitchen. It involves high heat and a manufacturer setting. And actually, back in the history of how we've messaged to people to avoid certain fats, when we were first suggesting people avoid saturated fat, the food chemists and whatnot went in there and they found out a way to produce trans fats. What we then came to find out was that the trans fats were even more unhealthy for us than the saturates. So now they've taken the saturated fat back out of foods, and now they're finding a way to create foods that are using more vegetable oils or olive oil blends, like you see here. Now, the reason the olive oil is so good for you, or vegetable oil would it be, or canola oil, which is what's in this mayonnaise, is that they're vegetable fats, and they are monounsaturated. So the saturated fats we want to continue to limit as much as possible. The trans fats we want to avoid, and the monounsaturated fats, as well as the polyunsaturated fats, which you'd find in fish and walnuts, in ground flaxseed. These are the fats we want to aim for.
The good fats.
They're the good fats.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now there's a lot of information going on, or I don't know if it's just a new fad or something, about the coconut oil.
Sure.
What can you tell me about
Yeah.
that? Because I see it all over the place, but I'm not really sure if it's just something new, it's going to stick around.
Great question. So coconut, I think coconut in general has kind of exploded in the supermarket, in media, in recipes, on TV. So, and coconut is found in so many different forms in the supermarket. You can find coconut milk, you can find coconut water, you can find the coconut hull, obviously, in produce. And then we've got our coconut oil, like you see here. Now, when you look at this vegetable oil, I can pick it up. You can see, obviously, that it's liquid even in this room. This coconut is solid at room temperature. Usually that is the first key of a saturate or a saturated fat, and in this case it is as well. So of course, since your coconut is not an animal, the type of saturated fat in there is actually a little different than the type of saturated fat you get in the animal from an animal source or from other sources. It's actually, if we had a microscope here, we could see that it's actually molecularly a little different. In the meantime, though, it is still a saturated fat, and I think that some of the excitement over it is sort of outpacing the research we're getting on it to know how it will affect our cholesterol levels in the long term.
So it's too new.
Yeah, it's a little too new. So, I mean, if you appreciate cooking with it, or you like the heat of it, and the heat that you can cook with, or the taste it may offer certain foods, or the texture, then it's okay possibly to use it every now and then, but I certainly wouldn't change my diet or purposely seek this out as a sole fat source in my home.
Does it tend to be more expensive because it is kind of a specialty item?
Undoubtedly, yeah. Definitely going to be more expensive. So you probably wouldn't want to use too much of it anyway.
So you're paying more per serving size?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that as it hits the market more, the price is coming down. But nonetheless, yeah, definitely, definitely more expensive and definitely something I would limit. We always say if it could be solid room temperature, it could be solid in your arteries or increase your risk of coronary artery disease.
Right. So, like when you go into a place and you get something fried or something like that, they're not really changing that oil very often. So, and that oil is being heated, so that can't be too healthy when you're using fresh oil, right?
Yeah,
And
well,
then
there's a lot of reasons why deep frying something isn't as heart healthy for you as lightly sauteing it in a pan. Even though these are the good fats and the fats that we're seeking, we still don't want to drench our food in them. We don't want to drench our salads in them. We still want to use them in moderation. Roughly speaking, a teaspoon of this is roughly 45 calories and 5 grams of fat. So it
Wow.
doesn't take very much
Right.
to get that heart healthy benefit.
Okay, that's
Yep.
exciting.
Yeah.
All right.
So we've got some other things here as well. Just some things I thought of when I think as a dietitian about heart health. Oatmeal and fiber, and I'm going to be making a fiber-rich dish in a moment. This line from Kashi, the Heart to Heart line, you can find it in cereal like you see here, in crackers, in oatmeal they make. And what's interesting about their Heart to Heart line is that it really is created to reduce risk of heart disease. They put some additional potassium in here. They keep the sodium very low, and they enhance it with B vitamins. All of those things, potassium, reduced sodium, and B vitamins, are shown to aid in reducing your risk of heart disease.
And certified by the American Heart Association.
Of course.
So there's a lot of science that goes behind this, not just somebody who just created it.
That brand, actually, they don't just fortify their things broadly. They try to do it in more of a targeted way. And then we talk about sodium and heart health.
Right.
When you take in your sodium, you can increase your blood pressure, which could have a risk of increasing your risk of heart disease. So we always think about just avoiding things in cans, for example, because there could be salt in there and certain things. But I have a product here that just points out that there's no salt added. So I want to remind people that when they're cooking and things, it's okay that you're going to use canned items, but do look for the ones that are low sodium.
Right, because it's not good to have a pinch of salt here and a pinch of salt
Right.
there, because that all adds up. And
Yeah.
people tend to, I notice, grandmothers and people from a long time ago, that's the only way they would cook is with the salt here based on taste, but they don't really know how much they're really throwing in there.
Right. So people will tell me all the time that they either are very careful about that or they don't cook with salt. Just because you're not cooking with salt doesn't mean you're not cooking with ingredients that contain it. And if you do like to add salt to the dishes that you're making, I suggest adding it last, because that way you're actually tasting the flavor. You're not just cooking it into the product.
Right, and then you can do it by taste better.
Yeah.
So what about supplements?
Okay.
Can you tell me a little bit about how do supplements give you a healthier heart?
Right. So there's a lot of heart healthy supplements out there, combinations and things. I just want to remind people that that whole industry is unregulated. So you want to be very cautious about those things. I think one of the safer ones out there would be to just do a pure fish oil. That's very common. Even if you're doing that, you still want to talk to your doctor about it. Make sure your doctor knows whenever you're taking supplements, because they could interact with other medications. For example, fish oil can make your blood a little thin. If you're already taking a blood thinning medication, that could be a problem. So you want to talk to your doctor, and then if your doctor says that it's a safe thing for you to do, when you look at fish oil supplements, look for ones that are composed of teeny fish, because there's still that mercury concern, even in a fish supplement that you would
Right.
get when you consume fish.
So smaller fish have less mercury?
Small fish, less mercury.
All right, I'll have to look for that. All right. All right.
So,
So what do we have here?
Okay, so what I thought I would do today while we're together is make a Waldorf salad. So a Waldorf salad has the one I'm making today has apples and grapes and celery in it, and it has this potential to be so good for you, but it's also creamy. And so sometimes the mayonnaise part is when the recipe goes a little rogue, if you will, and becomes a little less healthy for you. So what I'm doing right now is just putting the apples and the grapes and the celery all together. And I'm just going to show you, and I'm going to add a little lemon juice to that too. I like to use pure lemon versus getting lemon juice because, first of all, it's less expensive. And then secondly, it just tastes fresher when you use fresh lemon. So I'm going to squeeze one lemon in there.
Okay.
Aiming for about a tablespoon, and I'm really aiming not to get pits in what you're about to eat.
Okay.
I'm taking very, very extra care about that, Dave. So I'm putting in squeezing one lemon in there. I've got the grapes and the celery and the apple in there, and I'm adding some chopped walnuts. I just mentioned that these
Right.
are really heart healthy for you. I know they can be a little expensive. What I have here is a small pouch that I got in the baking section. So if you don't want to invest in a lot at once, although I think that walnuts are they're a good thing to have around to add to cereals and stuff like that.
Well, I believe you should spare no expense when it comes to your health, especially when it's healthy eating.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good when you could do that. If it wasn't going to be walnuts, you could do almonds. You could do other things like that. So the one of the things I'm most excited about though is I'm going to use the canola mayonnaise, and even in this entire thing, I'm only going to put 2 tablespoons. And this isn't a light mayo. I know from being in the supermarket working with customers, people are passionate about their mayonnaise. They don't like you messing with their mayonnaise, especially if they are. If they like regular, they do not want you to give them light. This is not light, but it's made with the right fat. So it's actually far better for you. And even 1 tablespoon is only 40 calories.
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm only adding 80 calories of mayonnaise, the entire thing. And you can look at the label there and see that there's no saturated fat, no trans fat. And then for a little flavor, I'm going to put in a 1/4 teaspoon of ground ginger. And if you want the exact measurements on this, I put the recipe on my website so that you can go back and look at that.
Oh,
And
terrific.
make sure you get everything correct.
Definitely.
For the apples, I even use these little pre-sliced ones.
Oh, yeah, this is nice.
Yeah, they're convenient for traveling and stuff like that, or if you've got small children that you're trying to get them to eat a little more fruits and vegetables. It's easier for little hands to do that than to bite into a big
So this is great to
apple.
make the night before, put it in the refrigerator, and now we can have it for breakfast, because I know sometimes a lot of people don't like breakfast foods and they want to try something else, or we
Yeah.
could bring it for our lunch.
Yep. You could just dip crackers into this. You could put this over greens, maybe some pita wedges with it.
Or if you're having company,
Yeah, it's like a little dip.
or just a little cold salad with a sandwich.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it's hot outside and you don't feel like heating up your kitchen, it's a good way to get in some good nutrients. So I'm just going to put a little bit of poppy seeds on there, mostly for just texture and appearance. And then this is where you find out if I actually kept
right.
those lemon seeds out for you or not.
Well, it looks delicious.
So anyway, like I said, what I like about this is
Thank
that
you.
even though it's creamy, it's got the canola mayonnaise in it so that it's much better for your heart. And with all the apples and grapes and celery,
Oh,
it's got
excellent.
a lot of fiber in there.
It's very flavorful. Oh, it's excellent.
Good. So while I mention fiber, the one thing I want to make sure I say is that we know there's a strong correlation between our fiber and cholesterol and keeping cholesterol down or aiding in lowering cholesterol. But I want to
Okay, can I
point
just
out-
keep eating this?
Yeah, sure. You eat, I'll talk. That's the dietitian trick in the supermarket is that you serve people food and while they're eating, you get to say whatever you want
Oh,
because they
that's
can't
perfect.
interrupt you.
That's,
So anyway, what I wanted to say though is that when those studies are done on fiber, they're done on fruits and vegetables and your whole grains. Not as much on artificial fibers that you may find in like a Fiber One bar or something like that. So while those may be helpful for consuming fiber, we definitely want to always aim to have a diet rich in whole grains and fruits and vegetables to help with lowering our cholesterol.
and it's raw food.
Yeah.
Which is great. Fresh, raw food
And
is
made
the
at
best.
home. So simple.
Wow, this is excellent.
Good.
Well, I'll tell you, there's so much more we can talk about. So why don't we recap on all the things that we have here?
Okay, so just probably the main points are that we want to make sure that our diet is high in monounsaturated fat, which you're going to find in your nuts and your olive oil, avocado. That your diet is also rich in polyunsaturated fats, which you're going to find in ground flaxseed and walnuts, and fish, of course. And that we still consume a diet very low in saturated fat and avoid trans fats altogether.
Okay. And now, there was a time where it was very hard to find all these things a lot of times, right? But now they're packaged better, they're easier to get, so there's really no reason why we shouldn't all be eating healthier.
I agree.
All right, it sounds good. Well, thank you. And thank you for being on another edition of our show.
Yeah, always good to be here.